CEO's son stole my work, I got fired and blacklisted. So I cut them out of the industry. Nuclear, cold, and final. Hey Reddit, this one's going to be blunt and ugly and I've sat on it long enough. Short version up front. I built an architecture that could have made my company a serious player in federal contracting. The CEO's kid took it, lied about it, and when I complained, they fired me and quietly smeared my name. I spent months being unemployed and desperate. Then I rebuilt, got into the right rooms, and executed a plan that destroyed the careers and reputations of everyone who tried to bury me. No melodrama, just precise, cold, professional demolition. If you want the slow-motion revenge with no fireworks, read on. I'm 29, male. I'd been at Vector Path Solutions for 5 years. Grad school hire, steady promotions, late nights, proof of concept systems, the usual slog. It was the kind of place you grow roots in. Decent pay, interesting problems, room for a technically minded person to advance if they actually solve things. My specialty was secure architectures. I'd done the coursework, earned certs, and built systems that eat edge cases for breakfast. So when Vector Path decided to pursue federal contracts, the kind of work that could double revenue and change the company overnight, I raised my hand to lead the technical design. It was a career-defining opportunity. Their CEO's son, Trevor, showed up at the exact wrong time. He was 26, MBA, polished, entitled, and aggressively present in every meeting. Product manager by title, influenced by inheritance. He loved being in front of executives, loved saying vision, loved the optics of leading. What he didn't have was the technical depth to actually deliver. That didn't stop him from taking credit. Co-leads were assigned. I assumed I'd handle the heavy technical lifting while Trevor managed stakeholder messaging. Instead, he presented my work as his during official meetings. He used my phrases, my diagrams, my specific terminology. He put my exact designs, including the one I'd coined adaptive encryption layers, into his slide decks and safe for exec presentations and watched the company applaud. I documented everything: commit histories, email timestamps, design files, proof of concept code, meeting notes. I tried to fix it internally. I raised a formal complaint. HR and legal listened, nodded, and then offered me a separation agreement. Voluntary severance if I signed an ironclad NDA and agreed to leave quietly. Sign or face termination with no benefits and an employer that would quietly imply I was a problem. I signed because I couldn't afford a multi-year legal fight with no income. That's not moral judgment, it's survival. They escorted me out. My laptop box had a mug, a team photo, and the one notebook I'd kept with personal notes. Everything else I needed to prove authorship was either scrubbed or covered by the NDA. I moved back in with my parents, applied relentlessly, and watched the same pattern repeat. Final interviews, perfect fits, then dead silence after reference checks. Vector Path had pulled subtle poison into hiring circles. My savings burned through. For months, I floated on a sea of humiliation and anger, the kind of cold rage that doesn't make you scream so much as harden your spine. Then something unexpected. A LinkedIn message from Graham, principal at Sentinel Systems, established cybersecurity firm with federal experience. He'd been introduced to my name by a mutual contact who'd seen my earlier writing and historical commit traces. He'd dug deeper and recognized the work in Trevor's presentations as undeniably mine. He offered a job: lead technical work at Sentinel, attend the right conferences, be a credible presence in federal contracting. The job was good. More than money, it put me in rooms where procurement officers, technical reviewers, and investors spoke matter-of-factly about who actually could deliver and who was paper tiger noise. Here's where things split. A lot of revenge stories lean on drama leaks, gratuitous screenshots, social media pylons. That's messy, sometimes illegal, and ultimately hollow. I chose the cold approach that does maximum structural damage while staying inside legal and professional lines. Influence the right institutions quietly, align incentives, and let regulatory and financial consequences do the work. No hacking, no doxing, no illegal sabotage, just methodical exposure and escalation through legitimate channels. Step 1. Credibility. I didn't say anything about Vector Path. NDA still hung like a blade. But I didn't need to disclose proprietary details to prove my authority. I published white papers on neutral, widely accepted security forms that predated Vector Path's claims. I spoke at niche federal security workshops about general principles and patterns. I participated in technical panels and Quanda sessions at conferences not to attack Trevor, but to demonstrate the depth of my knowledge in public. When Trevor started pitching Federal Secure, the shell company he spun from VectorPath's concepts, to the DoD community, my name simply existed as an authority who'd discussed identical principles in public venues for years. That quiet overlap raised eyebrows. Step 2. Networks. Federal contracting is a relationship-driven ecosystem. People move between agencies, vendors, and primes. They share concerns informally. Can this vendor actually deliver? Do they have legitimate engineering competence? I attended the exact symposiums Trevor pitched to. I engaged, asked the correct technical questions, and answered them when asked. When Trevor presented, he could not defend the specifics. People in that room, program managers and senior technical reviewers, had technical teeth. Vague marketing language doesn't pass. The whispers began, "He's light on technical depth." It's amazing what a room full of engineers will do to a flimsy presentation. Step 3. Regulators and investors. I couldn't allege VectorPath's wrongdoing directly because the NDA forbade explicit disclosures. But Trevor had taken publicly exposed slide decks and pitched them to investors and government reviewers. Those pitch decks and certain public filings were accessible. With Graham and Sentinel's counsel, I connected with an investigator at a federal agency who handles fraudulent representations in procurement and securities contexts. I presented public timelines, my prior forum posts and conference talks, investor slide dates, Trevor's pitch dates, and public patent filings. The FTC and procurement oversight bodies don't need private NDA content to start asking questions when public claims don't align with historical public outputs and authorship. Timing and public record were all the bullets in the chamber. They started asking uncomfortable questions. Simultaneously, I documented the blacklist pattern recruiters' notes, the calls that died, the rejection emails, and retained counsel who specialized in employment retaliation. NDAs don't permit illegal retaliation, and systematic lateral calls to industry partners that exterminate someone's hiring prospects aren't just unprofessional, they're actionable. My lawyer drafted a letter outlining a plausible claim of unlawful retaliation and indicating willingness to litigate. VectorPath's legal team responded. Panic looked like legalese. Step 4. Investors and board pressure. Trevor's venture hinged on early investor confidence. Investors hate ambiguous technical risk. The more we made it clear through conference quanda and regulator interest that his technical claims were not backed by demonstrable delivery or verifiable independent credentials, the more nervous the investors got. Venture investors hate being on the wrong side of procurement skepticism, especially when a startup is pitching to government agencies where compliance and demonstrated capability are non-negotiable. Conversations happened behind closed doors. Commitments were rescinded. Dates for due diligence extended. Funding evaporated. Trevor's burn rate outpaced investor patience. Step 5. Legal pressure and settlement. With regulators asking questions, investors pulling back, and our employment counsel filing a credible claim of illegal retaliation, VectorPath's board had options. Litigate and risk public whistleblower claims plus regulatory attention, or settle quietly and clean house. They chose the latter. The settlement evaporated the economic smokescreen that had protected some executives. VectorPath agreed to revise references, to issue formal clarifications to specific hiring managers, and to put on paper that the decision to terminate me was not an adjudication of wrongdoing on my part. They also made internal policy changes about IP attribution and complaint handling. Things that read like reform but hit executives financially and reputationally. The CEO was forced to take an early retirement package to avoid a public board fight. That might sound mild, but in corporate life, an early retirement with a quiet exit is a public signal. Something went wrong. Trevor? He had more visible collapse. Investors walked. Government bidders closed their doors on Federal Secure when reviewers flagged technical inconsistencies. He tried to hire credible engineers to patch holes and bought consultants to rebuild credibility, but the damage to his brand was systemic. In procurement, once your name becomes attached to non-deliverable vaporware, it's very hard to shake. He found a consulting gig through an old contact. The resume line read like leverage. Professional who pivoted to boutique consulting. Nobody passed him big contracts again. His LinkedIn request turned into jokes in industry chat rooms. That's the kind of quiet, career-long erosion that leaves a person employable in small pockets, but never trusted with anything consequential again. People ask if I wanted money. Honestly, I wanted justice definitionally cold and measurable. I wanted the works I'd built named properly in official records, and I wanted the pattern of harassment and retaliation corrected so it couldn't happen to someone else. Money is useful. Apologies are weak. The settlement did award me compensation enough to rebuild, but more importantly, it forced VectorPath to issue corrective references that cleared my record in the market. Those corrective references opened doors again. That was the tactical endgame: clear the blacklist and make the market trust my name again. Revenge was a side effect, but a very tidy one. Afterward, it was clinical. No victory parade, no smug Instagram posts. I returned to work and focused on delivery. I took the role at Sentinel and ran hard. Federal projects, papers, public panels. My life normalized. Trevor's occasional attempts to reconnect the one LinkedIn request he sent, a failed apology sat unread. He once tried to grab a coffee after a conference. I walked past without acknowledging him. Cold? Yes. Merciless? Maybe. I didn't gloat. The cold part was the absence of spectacle. I didn't need to scream, I just removed their oxygen. People ask if I regret the path I took. I'm honest, there were costs. Losing 2 years of my professional momentum, the financial hit, the social humiliation, those were non-trivial. There's a loneliness to rebuilding that takes time to heal. I had to choose whether to let bitterness define me or to focus the energy on rebuilding and ensuring the industry held the people who betrayed their duty accountable. I chose the latter. That choice still involved anger, but it was put into practical, effective action. Lessons learned that aren't advice for revenge, but rather small survival truths. Document everything from day one. Timestamps matter. Commits, emails, meeting notes, all of it. NDAs can protect companies, not individuals. Get legal advice before signing away your career options. Build your public professional footprint early. Talks, papers, open source contributions. They act as time-stamped reputation anchors. Networks matter more than people think. The right person in the right room can amplify a truth you can't shout while under an NDA. Don't mistake tactical patience for weakness. I documented, I waited for leverage, and I executed when leverage existed. Last conference. I gave a tightly focused talk on secure architectures. The room was full of people who mattered in procurement and contracting and did not suffer bullshit gladly. Afterward, Trevor approached with that same rehearsed smile. If you imagine a man whose career is one long attempt to retake a stage he was never qualified for, you have the picture. I walked by him without a word, no insult, no theater. The coldest revenge isn't the loudest. It's the silence that follows when someone who tried to destroy you realizes they can't even buy your attention back. People call it revenge. I call it recalibration. They push their chips into a bet that I would be silent and powerless forever. I refused to be the powerless element they counted on. I used legal recourse where appropriate, reputational leverage in public forums, and the quiet weight of documented truth. Their careers unraveled not because I wanted to hurt them, though. I won't deny the satisfaction, but because the structures they'd built to lie and co-opt were fragile when exposed to scrutiny. If you're in the middle of a similar storm, get counsel, document, build independent professional credibility, and remember that a slow, professional approach can be more devastating than loud theatrics. I'm not proud of the anger that fueled me, but I'm satisfied with the result. The industry now knows how VectorPath operated. The CEO's legacy is tarnished, Trevor is no longer a rising star, and my name is associated again with competence, not controversy. Cold? Yes. Nuclear? Their careers and reputation were essentially erased in the circles that mattered to them. Final? For all practical purposes, yes. I got back what was mine: credit, a career, and the ability to protect others so they don't get stepped on in the same way. If you want drama, go elsewhere. If you want a quiet surgical takedown designed to ensure the people who abuse power can't do it again, that was my method. It wasn't pretty, but it was effective, and sometimes that's the only kind of justice that matters.